Hello, everyone. This is Dino Chris from Prehistoric Facts, and this is Prehistoric Facts Extra episode number 69. And we're going to be talking about a very cool subject that I think I really wanted to do for a while. I wanted to do an extra episode on this, so I figured I might as well do this. So, this would be mythical creatures based on fossil discoveries. And so, let's actually get started, shall we? So, what makes a mythical creature? Well, first and foremost, mythical creatures were told in stories by word to mouth. Even some were created by literature. And so, what this makes it is that these were actually told, these were stories that were told by many, many people throughout time. And it goes from say, a grandfather to to a grandfather to their next grandfather to the next grandfather to the next grandfather to the next grandfather to the next grandfather. So basically, grandchildren to grandchildren to grandchildren to grandchildren, or even like father to child, father to child, father to child, so on and so forth. It goes on for a long, long time, and so yeah, and these would be stories that we like be put in, even set in stone sometimes, even told stories in stone you know, like with the ancient Greeks or the ancient Romans, they actually told stories like this. Even you can see some of their stories told in stone at times, which is actually really, really neat. Or even like on pottery and all that sorts of stuff. And even fishermen's tales do actually be belonging into this kind of stuff as well. But were there any evidence of that these creatures of these creatures' existence? Well, really, what this really is that is with word to mouth type of stories is that it's based on imagination. And so a lot of people at that point in time, like in ancient civilizations, they had a very distinctive imagination. Like if there was something that they did not fully understand, they just really try to see if they can figure out what makes sense to them. And so ancient civilization, when they were finding fossils of some creatures, they didn't understand what these things really were. Like they knew that these things came from an animal, but they didn't know if this animal ever existed or was alive, like around the time that they were living in. And so a lot of these times, these stories kind of were like drawn up by imagination. And sometimes in the medieval times, like in medieval Europe, sometimes they would find fossils and claim something that they have found or otherwise possibly defeated. And also, it's more like a claim to fame, basically, like kind of like how today we say that person's getting their 15 minutes of fame. Well, guess what? That was the same thing in the back then. It was just that it was almost like not just 15 minutes of fame, but fame for the rest of their life, type of thing, because that sort of thing. But even some creatures that were said by that were considered mythical turned out to be actual animals living alive that are living today. Like say, um, think about the like say certain types of animals that are in Africa, because like certain people didn't believe that like gorillas existed, because they actually think that like, oh, this is a made up tale, that sort of thing. Like there's no way that there's like a hairy uh, beast that looks like it's a human and has like the hands of a human, but it has somewhat different facial features. It's dark and coloration and that sort of thing, And then when there was like bones of this animal that were found, and then all of a sudden, like other explorers were able to say, yeah, these things existed and they're still alive, and ultimately they found that evidence that they were there. But in this case, we're talking about like these creatures that were possibly based on fossils. And so, like, even trace fossils got confused by mythical creatures like dinosaur footprints, I mean, like, you name it. So let's actually get started here with one of the first creatures that we're actually going to be talking about. This video is going to be slightly shorter than the others, so let's actually get started. Let's talk about the Cyclops. So the Cyclops is based off of Greek mythology, even some bit of Roman mythology, but it's mostly Greek mythology. If you have read the story, the Odyssey, it talks about like Odysseus, this Greek warrior, going on this journey, and he encounters this land, and all of a sudden there's this creature that comes about, and it's a gigantic human-like creature called the Cyclops that has one eye on its head, and he encounters it, and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, that mythical creature, that was actually a pretty interesting story that was told in this type of in this story, the Odyssey. And so, for many, many generations, it was actually thought to be believed that the Cyclops did exist. But what was really the answer for the reasons why that these people believed that the Cyclops existed? Well, what if I told you that they found woolly mammoth skulls, and they didn't even know what these were, and when they looked at the skull, they just think it almost looks human, but it's not really human. But it has this like big opening like on the forehead, and they believed that big opening on the forehead of a mammoth skull was an eye socket, and they thought that this eye socket contained a giant eyeball, and this was a gigantic human-like creature that had one eye and probably was a very fearsome creature. But they didn't understand is that this was actually an elephant species, and so the woolly mammoth skulls were thought to be Cyclops, um, the giant Cyclops. And don't worry, this is not about the X Men. Don't worry about the X Men here, because this is talking about the mythical creature here. Mythical creature here, but the woolly mammoth skulls were the reasons why the Cyclops was born. And it wasn't until later in time is where we actually have actual scientists who actually looked at these skulls and saw these Greek mythological stories, or read those Greek mythological stories, and they kind of concluded is that, oh, these ancient Greeks, they were probably finding mammoth skulls, and they didn't even understand what they were. So the woolly mammoth skull was the inspiration for the giant Cyclops. And so, yeah, so the woolly mammoth was the reasons why for the giant Cyclops stories. Next is dragons. Who doesn't love dragons? I mean, like, everybody loves dragons. You know, we see, like, in medieval times, there's stories of, like, knights, like, killing these, like, gigantic reptilian creatures. Some of them did have, like, maybe, like, feathers or even, like, bird-like features. Even has like wings of a bat and can be very all powerful and can breathe either fire or otherwise have like these other types of abilities, that sort of thing. And like dragons have been part of mythology for a long time, not just in the medieval times, but also in like Chinese mythology. I mean, like you name it. So dragons have been around for a long, long time in terms of like storytelling. But what were the inspirations for dragons? It was possibly not just reptiles and certain types of birds, but they were also possibly fossils of some things that some of these people didn't understand. Like say dinosaur skulls. Like say for like the medieval times, you probably were thinking like maybe dinosaur skulls, like say Megalosaurus, maybe Baryonyx, or a few others. They were the reasons why for the dragon's mythology, or even like a marine reptiles like mosasaurs. Mosasaurs were probably the reasons why for inspiration for dragons. And of course, for Chinese mythology, they probably were finding like say Velociraptor or even Tarbosaurus skulls, and they were claiming that those were like skulls of dragons. And so, yeah, it's really really cool to think about that. Is that certain types of dragons were inspired by possibly like not just like lizards and maybe crocodiles, but also dinosaur fossils and even marine reptile fossils. And I mean, if you look at a drawing or an artist rendition of a dragon, they do look dinosaur-like, and so that's pretty cool. And the last creature we'll talk about here is the unicorn. And so a lot of people know what a unicorn is. It's a horse that has like this big honking cone shaped horn on its forehead. And Scotland, if you actually look at Scotland, their national animal is a unicorn. You know, believe it or not. And so, yeah, and unicorns were actually around in terms of mythology, mainly in Europe, of what these things really were. They thought they were like a breed of horse that had a horn on its head. But there is an explanation of why they believe that there were like these like cone-shaped horns on that were found in like say medieval like Great Britain or even like say northern France or in all those places, is that they were probably finding fossils of the Othoceras or the straight cone nautiloids, but there's also a living animal that they were probably influenced by, and that was the narwhal, the porpoise or whale uh, that has that like corkscrew like horn on its head. But not just the yeah, like I said, the narwhal is a good inspiration for the unicorn, but also these fossils here of like say Othoceras and other gigantic uh, straight cone nautiloids. And so when you actually look at like these like Othoceras fossils, they do look very similar to the horns of a unicorn. And so that makes it really interesting of like how these people were thinking like, oh, these possibly belong to a creature that is possibly around, but we don't know, is a possibly a horse that has these things on its head. And I have no idea how they came up with a horse that had uh, these like these like straight cones on their head. I mean, who knows what they actually came up with with stuff like that. But yeah, unicorn horns were probably based off of Othoceras fossils and narwhal tusks, which is unreal to think about. But also, let me know in the comments down below, what is your favorite mythical creature? I mean, it's me. I like dragons. I also like the griffin. That's actually a pretty cool thing too. Like the griffin is possibly inspired by maybe um, like people that traveled to Asia and they found like the Protoceratops skull, and they kind of like, oh, this looks weird. It's like a bird. It's like a beak of a bird, but it almost looks like it's a body of a like a lion or something like that, you know. And so yeah, and so I like the griffin. I like uh, dragons as well. And so yeah, those are my favorite mythical creatures. But tell me in the comments down below, what is your favorite mythical creature? So the next episode would be not January, February 23rd, 2023, and that would be a Q&A episode. So if you got any questions about dinosaurs and other prehistoric life, feel free to email me at dinochrist71@gmail.com, or just go to my Facebook page, Prehistoric Facts with Dino Chris. Like the page, yes, you post your questions in the comment section. Please put them in the comment section. Don't put them on Messenger. Messengers for private conversations. So please put your questions in the comment section if you're on the Facebook page. And for you YouTubers out there, hit that like button. So like those videos, subscribe to the channel because it helps out the algorithm. And according to my analytics, a lot of you guys that are checking out my channel are not subscribed yet. So please feel free to subscribe to this channel so that way you can see every single video and learn about prehistoric life, like dinosaurs, prehistoric marine reptiles, marine or like prehistoric other types of reptiles and mammals, birds, amphibians, I mean, fish, you name it. Because talk about a lot of things here in terms of prehistoric life. And hit that like button because it helps out the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel, stomp on that notification bell so that we can get every single video that comes out weekly. And also for YouTubers out there, feel free to leave your questions in the comment section because I do read them all. Your questions do mean a lot on those Q&A episodes. You guys are giving me some great questions both on Facebook, email, and YouTube. So keep up the good work of keeping bringing me some great questions for the Q&A episodes, and make sure you keep your questions short and to the point. You can also follow me on Instagram at dino.chris.pf, but post pretty cool stuff on there. You can also follow me on Twitter at CSGRALL. That's my Twitter page. I post pretty cool stuff on there as well. Also, take care of the people around you, and also for your younger people out there to make solutions, your parents, your teachers, and your guardians. It's the best motivation to have a good education. It's very important to have a good education. So with a good education, get a good job in the future. And stay tuned this Saturday because in the community tab, if you go to the community tab, you see I put a lot of like posts on there of like letting you know what episode is coming out. I've done a couple of polls on there, but those polls are kind of over with now. Um, but uh, this Saturday, I will be posting a picture of something that is going to be involved in my library program, and I am very excited about this. This is an amazing thing that's going to be happening throughout not this basically next month, but also throughout the summer, because I am looking forward to doing this library program. So stay tuned on Saturday because this piece that I'm going to show you, it will be a picture, and so this will be awesome, and I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be happening in less than a month, which is crazy to me. It's going to start in less than a month. So stay tuned this Saturday for the post on the community tab. And that's it for now. And I'll see you guys next time.